A cunning smile painted on Persha's lips. I see. My youngest brother holds the trump card that makes Evian's heart flutter. Persha smiled mischievously. The karsha fruit I gave him was of exceptionally high quality. Without the help of librarian Evian, the boy would have died while eating it. I guess he already knew that Evian was Larvian, right? Sando immediately continued. It is also possible that such a situation could happen. Persha continued to ask Sando, based on the way you said it, it seems like the kid has successfully absorbed it. Sando respectfully nodded yes, but there's a strange thing. Sando hesitated for a moment before continuing. The seventh young master's body became incredibly strong. Persha exclaimed with excitement. Really? Sando added yes, even the Evian ice girl was shocked. Sando looked puzzled. His ability to absorb mana was amazing, and yet his heart rate and body temperature were stable. Persha smiled happily and nodded. It must be the boy's heart. Fine, after all, he is a Maken family member. After thinking for a while, Persha continued to ask, Sando, how long do you think it will take for him to absorb all the mana? Normally it would take 3 years, but I guess it will only take 1 year. Sando firmly shook his head. According to the current progress, I think just 3 weeks is enough. Sando's answer caused Persha's smile to fade and be replaced by a more wary attitude. That was an absorption speed beyond imagination, even if one was from the Maken family. Meanwhile, at the Maple Mansion, Sung-min finished absorbing the mana in the apple, but is still eating onions because of its effects afterwards. Sung-min couldn't sleep and was so frustrated that he screamed loudly. He sat up on the bed with heavy breaths exhaling the heat. His body, so hot. Sung-min looked at his body. His whole body was sweating profusely and emitting an abundant amount of mana. Too much mana accumulated, causing his body to automatically heat up. Sung-min got up from the blanket and started jogging at night to relieve his frustration. But until dawn, he still didn't want to stop. I've been running for several hours, and I'm not tired anymore. Until the cock crowed, Sung-min continued to run around the mansion's yard, his speed not decreasing after dozens of laps. Sung-min thought as he ran. His body was full of energy, but it seemed like it was too much. I felt like my heart was about to explode because it was overflowing with mana. Hampton had just woken up, still in a daze, and received orders from Sung-min, leading him to the waterfall. Feeling that just running wasn't enough, Sung-min went to the giant artificial waterfall in the mansion's garden, and he started climbing the waterfall with his bare hands. Sung-min was breathing heavily while hanging on the slippery cliff. This is much better. I can expend more energy than running. Feeling that this was not enough to challenge himself, Sung-min ordered Hampton to bring me some weights. Each one is about 10 pounds. Sung-min wrapped the weights around his wrists and ankles and continued to climb. Every time Sung-min felt the mana pumping into his heart. Notification system. Beginner combat magic skills. Determination to protect your body. Determined will is upgraded to very determined will. Very determined will protects your body more. As he continued to activate his entire body to climb the cliffs, he was also promoted to another combat magic technique. Weight usage upgraded to weight mastery. Sung-min suddenly felt that his body had become a lot lighter even though he was wearing 10 kilograms weights, so he eagerly ordered Hampton to increase it to 20 kilograms. A week later, still practicing climbing waterfalls, Sung-min again achieved improvements in his skills and increased his weight to 30 pounds. A week later, the weight had increased to 50 pounds. Hampton could not stand the insecurity and advised him, Master, your passion is admirable, but trying too hard is too late. Sung-min grinned and replied, It's okay. He thought to himself, I haven't been able to get enough sleep these past few days, but I feel even more energetic. After 3 weeks, Sando returned to report the situation to Persha. I think he had absorbed all of Karsha's mana. Sando hesitantly said with a troubled look, He really has a strange body. Persha also showed a bit of a surprised reaction. Really? Sando described how every day he climbed the artificial waterfall with his bare hands. Persha chuckled and asked, It doesn't use magic, Sando replied with an uncertain voice. It seems like he uses magic to fight. Persha said somewhat disdainfully, Combat magic developed very early and quickly in the early stages, but it had a certain limit. It should just settle down and do a minor detail. Sando seemed hesitant again, but he was climbing the waterfall every day with 50-pound dumbbells. Persha raised her eyebrows in suspicion. Isn't it 5 kilos? Sando nodded firmly, yes, and he could climb to the top of the 30-meter waterfall in less than 5 minutes. Persia immediately burst into laughter. Ha ha ha! It must have too much energy. I don't know how many days it will survive. Sando suddenly became worried. If we keep this up, he will die within 3 months. Sando did not hide his feeling of insecurity. His body contained too much mana, without a special power to protect his body. He will explode, she timidly suggested to Persia. He can survive, if you help him, Lady Persia. However, Persia showed an indifferent face, not liking it. Giving him Karsha is enough. Let me see how he can survive. After that, Persia showed a sinister smile. If it is really about to die, we must at least make it say a way to make Evian's heart move. On the other hand, after only 3 weeks of hard training, Sung Min's appearance completely changed. He happily groomed himself in front of the mirror and admired his difference. The layer of fat on Sung Min's body has disappeared, leaving only a strong and muscular body that makes him extremely proud. It seems like I've changed quite a bit thanks to the process of absorbing mana. After changing clothes, Sung Min spent time drinking tea with his mother as promised. So asked his son a little worriedly, "Don't you think you lost too much weight?" Sung Min grinned and shook his head. "It's just about losing excess fat after a little exercise, Mom." So still feels insecure. Appearance is important, but health is much more important. Sung Min laughed loudly and showed off his muscles to her. "I've never felt this strong, Mom. Don't worry." Seeing her son so happy, So just smiled gently. Then she said to Hera, "Your tea-making skills are getting better and better." Hera blushed slightly with shyness. "Thank you for the compliment. You are also getting more and more beautiful, Mrs. So. Sung Min was a bit confused when looking at Hera's sincere acting expression. Hera seemed quite friendly with her mother, a bit unusual. But whatever, being friendly is a good thing after all. Then he looked back at So with a relieved smile. His mother's seeds had almost disappeared. Everything is going quite well. That night, Sung Min stayed in his room, activating his holy eye while using an easy energy cultivation method to double his cultivation effectiveness. He lay on the bed contemplating while feeling refreshed with mana running through his body. Today is December 20, 218. According to the Hyphaean calendar, it is almost December 24, Stella de Shido night, that is, the evening before a star is born. According to Sung Min's novel, the star here refers to the person who gathered all the demi-humans and primitive tribes and founded the first empire. King Hyphaean, in short, December 24 is the day before King Hyphaean was born. Of course, Sung Min doesn't care much about the king or any holiday. That's just a timeline that he randomly placed in his novel. The focus that makes him remember this day is something else. According to Sung Min's storyline, Rudia will arrive at the west gate of the main house on December 24, who will later be known as the Fireball, the natural enemy of the magician, the bloody butcher, the one-armed archmage. That night, Rudia would be driven out of the domain of the famous Maithan family, after suffering a humiliating defeat, however. Sung Min did not clarify this detail in the novel. He just wrote that Rudia was captured by the third lady. A chill ran down his spine when he thought about Persia's hobby. Now I understand why Rudia lost an arm. Ultimately, Rudia bore a deep hatred for the Maithan family and became one of Kaysen's most important comrades. She is a character who possesses a special power called Fireball. Kaysen forms a fire contract with Fireball, and together they bombed all the battlefields. Sung Min silently calculated, "It would be great if I could get at least one artifact that, according to the script, Kaysen got from Rudia, like the Holy Grail of Fire." Suddenly at this moment, something strange appeared in the room that was caught by the holy eye. Sung Min was startled but did not dare to move. Someone sneaked in here. Character information. Is it a subordinate of the third lady? Sung Min frowned and wondered, since when I should pretend not to see him? If I don't use my holy eyes, I won't be able to see him anymore. However, when Sung Min tried to stop using the holy eye, the system announced that you cannot turn off the holy eye while using the easy energy cultivation method. If you forcibly turn off the holy eye, you will leak. Mana leak. Sung Min thought to himself, surely he wouldn't waste his time continuing to spy on a sleeping person, so he pretended to close his eyes and deliberately snored. Sando witnessed that scene and was extremely shocked and stunned. What is that? He can cultivate mana even when he sleeps. Sando was so shocked that he stiffened. Mana cultivation is a skill that requires precision. Even a small impact or a shake of the mind can lead to death. But he calmly slept while cultivating mana. Worried drops of sweat started pouring down Sando's face. This isn't logical at all. But how should I report this to the young lady? This is a phenomenon that goes far beyond the common perception of ordinary magicians. This guy just learned the basic cultivation skill from the Starlight Library, and I thought it wasn't an advanced skill because the energy it emitted was too little. But he can still cultivate even when he sleeps, and his mana is still stable. I've read Introduction to Magic and the book on easy energy cultivation, but I don't see any mana cultivation skills in there. The more Sando thought about it, the more confused he became. He successfully absorbed mana from Kartia with the help of Edian, and changed a lot physically. According to his guess, he collected the mana scattered in his body into his heart. But the problem was that his heart was abnormally healthy, and there seemed to be no harm even though he had accumulated so much mana in his heart. On the contrary, his mana became more and more stable, even though he could not create the second circle yet. There is also no body-strengthening magic. The endurance of that heart is too unusual. I will have to report the details to the young lady tomorrow. Right after once again synthesizing the necessary information, Sando left with a splitting headache. Sung Min's unusual behavior left her stunned. When he could no longer feel Sando's presence in the room, Sung Min cautiously opened his eyes to look. Was he gone? That's really annoying. 4 days later, Hyphaean Solar Year 218, December 24, Stellation of Night is also celebrated like Christmas Eve in Korea. In the courtyard of the main house of the Maton family, there was a giant pine tree decorated brightly and sparkling. While everyone came here to pray in front of the pine tree, some men called Hara and Hampton to go somewhere. Hampton confusedly asked some men, young master, where are we going? Some men calmly replied, to the end of the west gate. Hampton was confused and didn't understand some men's purpose, at the very end of the west gate. But what was that for? Maton is one of the 3 largest families in the empire. Their territory is of course extremely large. People must pass through 4 gates in the west to enter the Maton family's territory. Where Sun Min was heading was the western gate, which as its name suggests, was the furthest gate. Sun Min is wanting to go there to meet Rudia, the future bloody butcher, natural enemy of magicians, one-armed great magician. According to the novel, Rudia is currently 9 years old, the same age as Larson. Sung Min's eyes looked towards the gate full of determination and expectation. I have to meet her. At this time, Rudia was already at the west gate, but the situation she was in didn't seem to be very good. Rudia was fighting with the guards guarding the west gate, and she shouted in a very angry voice, "You bastards! I will kill you all!" Rudia fought fiercely with red fireballs in her hands. She really has strong growth potential compared to other magician children her age. Meanwhile, 3 people from some men's group were heading to the gate. Hampton seemed unusually excited, all the way to the west gate. If you want to visit the 6th young master's mansion, I have prepared a lot of paralysis poison. Rudia coldly replied, no. Suddenly Hampton's face fell like a rice cake dipped in water. The boy felt strangely regretful. Even though he didn't look, some men could still feel it intuitively. Are you disappointed? The question made Hampton startled and confused. Yes, very. No, I'm not disappointed at all. At this moment, the guard's screams came from outside the west gate, interrupting the story of Hampton, the strange demon. Stop her. Sung Min hurriedly ran over to see the situation, and quickly his holy eyes identified the girl summoning the fireball as Rudia. Simple-minded personality. Loyal, loving father. Some men looked at Rudia with worried eyes. I can't believe that she was built into an extremely simple-minded person. I set it up too half-heartedly. Hampton also approached with curiosity and worry. What's wrong with that girl? Some men silently thought about how to defuse the conflict. He suddenly remembered that she had no poison resistance right now, so he immediately called Hampton. There's a use for your paralysis poison. Throw it away. Some men eagerly looked at Rudia's angry expression and urged Hampton. That girl was the target. Paralyze her at any cost. Quickly. Hampton excitedly threw the poison bag at Rudia. Yes, paralyzing poison. Open fire. The poisonous bag soared over Rudia's head. She was so excited that she didn't even notice it. I will burn everything. When Rudia was about to launch the fireball again, The poisonous bag burst open in the air. The curses that were spewing from Rudia's mouth began to fade as the numbing chalk dust fell on her body. As soon as Rudia fell to the ground, Sung Min immediately ran past the gate guard. I need to resolve this situation quickly. The guard immediately grabbed Sung Min's shoulder and held him back. The guard shouted loudly and questioned Sung Min. Who are you? How did you break in here? Tell me your identity. Sung Min glared at him. I came from inside. Where are your eyes going? You're a gatekeeper and can't tell the direction. Sung Min glanced at the magician who had been defeated by Rudia with a disdainful expression. I guess these guys stationed at the far end of the west gate can't even be called family magicians anymore. But your ability is too poor. Actually, Sung Min knew clearly that it wasn't because the gatekeepers were weak, but because Rudia was too strong. But he also knew, sometimes acting like an asshole makes things a lot easier. Sure enough, the gatekeeper was momentarily intimidated by Sung Min's confident tone. He stammered and asked again, who are you? But Sung Min did not bother to answer and instead declared, I will take her away. The guard tried to stop Sung Min. I can't let you do that. Tell me your identity first. Seeing his master being questioned in a harsh voice, Hampton immediately cleared his throat. He grandly introduced Sung Min, the noble magician of the Maiden family, heir to the Maiden family's bloodline. The great man walked before the light of humanity, resolutely following the path of magic. Hampton passionately flatters Sung Min despite his shy face, an extraordinary person about to embark on an amazing journey. He was the seventh young master, Larson Maiden, when Hampton's hand reached out towards Sung Min, even though he felt so shy that he wanted to apparate, but still very skillfully coordinated to create a proud pose. Hampton asked the guard with full confidence, have you opened your eyes now? However, the guard's reaction was not as expected. He screamed with a shocked expression, exclaiming it just in time. The guard firmly pointed at Sung Min and scolded him. You idiots pretend to not even know Master Larson Maiden's face. Master Larson Maiden is not as handsome as you. His questioning made Sung Min doubt life. So is that a compliment or an insult? He silently lamented, I've only lost a few pounds, but it's serious. Right after that he raised his bossy voice and shouted, Hey, what's your name? I remember your face. Do you really think someone came out of Mayhem Castle and pretended to be the seventh young master? The guard was confused by Sung Min's attitude and said it made sense, but Sung Min took advantage of the victory and rushed forward, continued speaking eloquently. Everyone knows that young master is an ugly, hateful pig. So do you really think that I would impersonate him without knowing the truth? If I wanted to die, I would do that. Sung Min used strong arguments to turn the situation around while Hampton silently cheered him on. But to me, you were always cool. Sung Min declared with cold eyes. If you still don't believe me, just send someone to the center to confirm. The guard frantically replied, I will do that. Sung Min interrupted him with a dark, threatening voice. Do what you want. But once you confirm that I am truly the seventh young master, you will pay the price for your stupidity. The frightened guard immediately knelt down and worshipped, squealing, asking for forgiveness, young master. However, he still refused to let Sung Min go easily. You, master, but why do you want to take that girl with you? His question made Sung Min stunned for a moment. Why? I didn't expect this guy to ask so much. I haven't thought about the reason yet. In an urgent situation, he made up an excuse, at the same time acting confused and a little excited, because she was very beautiful. The guard could only bow respectfully. I see, but Hero was skeptical when she heard Sung Min's answer. Obviously, he took the initiative to come here. After that, the three of Sung Min's group successfully brought Rudia to the Maple Mansion's warehouse, bound and gagged. Sung Min and the two servants patiently waited for Hampton's paralyzing poison to wear off. Although neither Hampton nor Hera knew what Sung Min wanted to do, their eyes were more serious than their masters. Suddenly at this moment, the system notices that a variable has appeared that affects the story and its plausibility. Sung Min was shocked but couldn't show it. The slight change in the storyline felt so terrible. While Sung Min was still wondering what the variable was, Rudia opened his eyes. She sat up and mumbled something continuously. Sung Min thought to himself, not sure, but it looked like she was swearing and cursing herself. Sung Min pondered for a moment. Rudia's personality was extremely simple. I should treat her in the simplest way possible. After deciding how to behave, he gently opened his mouth. Hey, I heard your father is sick. I will help you. The words he just said caused Rudia to stop making trouble in shock. Sung Min continued speaking in a sincere voice. My mother is also very sick. I know why you came here. Looking at the cloak with the moon on the left chest, she must be a magician from Heron, because she uses fire, so she is a fireball. Yes. Sung Min's analysis surprised Hampton. How did the boss know these things? Sung Min continued to say, Heron is the southern region right next to the Dragon Mountains, and I heard there was an epidemic spreading there recently. Hearing this, Hera became even more skeptical about Sung Min. His intelligence and understanding were truly unusual, because even she did not know the story of that remote village. Sung Min frankly declared, I know how to cure that epidemic. Rudia, who was silent, had an immediate violent reaction. Seeing her eyes light up, Sung Min knew he was starting to attract her. I knew she came to the Maiden family without any plans. She simply thought we knew how to cure her. That disease. Seeing Rudia keep muttering, Sung Min immediately said, Okay, if you understand what I say, then nod twice. Rudia obediently nodded twice following Sung Min's instructions. Immediately afterwards, Sung Min ordered Hera to remove the tape from her mouth. Sung Min gently asked Rudia, Okay, have you calmed down a bit? Rudia opened her sparkling eyes full of expectation and looked at Sung Min. Are you really going to help me? Sung Min thought to himself. She spoke quite carelessly. Perhaps Cassin also said that to persuade her to join his side. Immediately after that he nodded resolutely. Yes, I said I would help. Rudia asked bewilderedly, Why did you help me? Sung Min raised his eyebrows and looked at her suspiciously. Was the reason that important? Rudia bowed her head in confusion. I heard that people with noble status will not help others unconditionally. Sung Min asked the girl back, who said that. Rudia immediately replied, My father. Sung Min continued to question. Then why did you still come to my family even though you thought we wouldn't help unconditionally? Rudia replied honestly, I was going to give a reason for help, because I had some good items. Sung Min's eyes immediately flashed a light of interest. Reason, good stuff, that must be it. Holy Grail of Fire, which Cassin Sade received in the original work. Sung Min felt much more excited when thinking about that magical artifact. He firmly affirmed again, I will cure your father. Rudia then grinned. Really? Sung Min took the opportunity right after that, but everything has its price. Rudia nonchalantly answered him. I don't have money. Sung Min said generously. You can pay later. Rudia had some hope of asking clearly. So how much do you need? Sung Min didn't want to reveal that he knew about the Holy Grail of Fire, so he replied, I don't know yet. We'll have to finish the treatment to know. Rudia smiled brightly and looked at him expectantly. So please cure him. Sung Min asked again. You will definitely repay me. Rudia nodded firmly, of course, at any cost. Sung Min continued to lead. Didn't you say you had some good things? Without waiting for Sung Min to say more, Rudia hastily agreed. I will also give it to you. Sung Min chuckled inside. Okay, that's it. Right after that he called Hampton and gave him the task. Sung Min told Hampton to go find some 10-year-old herbs and spread them throughout the Heron area. Just boil the 10-year-old herbs in silver-coated seawater for about 18 minutes. It will cure the diseases of the people in that area. Hampton looked at Sung Min in surprise. This is the first time I've heard about such a method of cooking medicine. Can you explain it to me, boss? Sung Min didn't know how to explain. He could only reply arrogantly, Don't doubt your master's ability. Hampton looked at his proud appearance and felt extremely admired. He did not hesitate to kneel down to receive the order. He understood. Young master, I will do as you say. Hampton silently shouted in his heart. So great. The boss is really cool. Then it was Hira's turn to be curious. Master, maybe a bit too much, but can I ask you something? Sung Min turned to look at Hera with a cold expression. Anyway, you are also curious about that method of cooking medicine. Hera nodded without hesitation. Yes, that's true. I can't understand it with my knowledge. Sung Min immediately appeared mysterious, simply because he was from the Maiden family. Hera finally couldn't ask any more questions even though she was still confused. Thank you for your guidance. In the moment of looking into Sung Min's steadfast eyes full of confidence and pride, Hera silently admired that determination. He looks like a small homeowner. Sung Min was filled with joy and immediately blurted out, Rudia, I will untie you now. That sentence made Rudia stunned. What? She suddenly became angry and shouted loudly. What did you just say? Rudia's eyes were full of suspicion and wariness, staring at Sung Min. I never told you my name. How do you know? Sung Min silently cursed in his heart. Damn it, I made a mistake. Sung Min was bewildered, looking at the fiery anger rising from Rudia's body, leaving the mother, accidentally speaking. He tried to calm himself down and not panic, then his mind went into overdrive with a forced smile. Isn't it strange that I know your name? Rudia glared at Sung Min. Oh, very strange. Sung Min continued to ask. So what if I provide you with herbs for 10 years even though you haven't done anything for me? Rudia replied in a skeptical voice, which is also very strange. Sung Min kept asking. Isn't it strange that I revealed the secret medicine of the maiden family to you? Rudia started to feel hesitant. Also, very strange. Sung Min still hasn't stopped asking questions. Isn't it strange that I do something that benefits you so much? At this point, Rudia was completely shaken, also very strange. Rudia's psychological defenses crumbled in the blink of an eye when Sung Min showed resentment toward her. Do you know that you just showed disrespect to a benefactor who intends to help you? Rudia bowed her head with a guilty look. Yes. Sung Min was moved to criticize Rudia. Do you know that you just turned my kindness into buffalo dung, right? Rudia could only bow deeply with a mumbled, I'm sorry. Sung Min grinned and teased the girl. What did you say? Rudia's voice still didn't get any louder. I'm sorry. Sung Min came closer with a sarcastic gesture. What did you say? I didn't hear clearly. Rudia blushed shyly and shouted, I'm sorry, my fault. Feeling that he had enough of oppressing Rudia, Sung Min smiled arrogantly and told her, I will accept that apology. But you still have to stay here first. Rudia immediately protested. Why can't I go home? Sung Min started threatening the girl. Don't you remember what you did? You broke into Maiden's residence and even attacked the gatekeepers. Do you think you'll be able to get out of here safely? Rudia bowed her head, confused. That, Sung Min asked her. She said she came to save her father. Then what did they say? Rudia replied chokingly. They said this is not a place where a lowly person like me can go. Rudia continued to tell with a whimper. They laughed and said that even if the father of someone like me died, it had nothing to do with the Maiden family. Rudia said with tears in her eyes, I was going to kill all of them. Rudia choked up and said with tears in her eyes, I like to play with my father, but they told my father to die. They are evil people. Sung Min felt sorry for Rudia. He immediately ordered Hera to let her go. Even though Hera still has many doubts, he still does his duty. Yes, master. Rudia sobbed, wiped her tears, and looked up at Sung Min with curious eyes. But who are you? Why do you treat me so kindly? Sung Min without hesitation replied, I am Larson Maton. Rudia pondered for a moment. Larson, Maton. Then she exclaimed with innocent eyes. Rudia pointed straight at Sung Min. Are you the worst bastard in the world? Her question made all three of them dumbfounded. Hampton and Hera looked at each other with she eyes, and Sung Min could only force a bitter smile. Is that what I'm known for? Rudia nodded innocently. That's right. People say he's extremely trash. Rudia grinned right after that. But he's not like that. He's a kind person. Suddenly, the system displays a notification that a variable affecting the plot has appeared. Sung Min looked at Rudia wonderingly for a long time. Kaisen's ally, cold-blooded butcher and great one-armed magician. Is it right to make Rudia my ally? Looking at the girl's innocent and pure smile, Sung Min reassured himself. Just slowly see what happened. Late at night, Hampton knocked on Sung Min's door when it was past 11 o'clock. The boy carried a large backpack into Sung Min's room. I have collected all the herbs for 10 years like you said, master. I will go to Heron right away. Sung Min nodded. Okay, how long will it take to get there? Hampton politely replied, it will take 3 days. Before leaving, Hampton suddenly knelt down on one knee. Master, please excuse me, but can I ask you a question, sir? May I know the reason why you helped Rudia? Sung Min replied with sad, distant eyes. Just dying from a disease that can be cured is such a pity. It's even more pitiful when it's her father. Helping her is not such a big deal. Sung Min is speaking with sincerity right now because he understands better than anyone the pain of losing his parents. Hampton bowed his head with tears of emotion, thanking the master for this profound lesson. Sung Min bewilderedly asked the boy, what lesson? Hampton thought to himself, we are a famous family. The master probably means that we should not be indifferent to other people's difficulties. This is the path that a famous family should follow. Hampton's eyes filled with admiration for some men. I have found the light of truth. Immediately after that, the boy began his journey to save people with a love for life. Some men didn't understand what Hampton was thinking, but he knew for sure that the boy was worshipping his master again, nonchalantly. To be honest, the main reason for this is because I want to get that holy grail, but saying it this way is partly true. 2 days later, an uninvited guest arrived at the Maple Mansion. As soon as the maids in the mansion heard the sound of high heels clicking on the floor, they were startled and frightened. Persia's voice echoed throughout the hallway. I heard that P has a pretty cool new toy. Persia opened the door to some men's room and rushed in like no one was there. Let's see, I wonder what toy our worst kid in the world brought back. While having fun, Persia's face stiffened when she saw some men. She looked suspicious and asked some men, who are you? There's no one so handsome in our family's history. Some men glanced at Persia arrogantly. Larson Mathan. I am your youngest brother. Persia giggled again. You're quite interesting. You always make me curious. It's like you're hiding a lot of things. Sun Min said in an indifferent voice, I have nothing to hide. In his heart, he silently said, except that I am the creator of this world. Persia suddenly came closer and grabbed Sun Min's chin. But you know, why are you so cute? Boys have to be handsome, right? Although Persia's movements were very gentle, her cold eyes made Sun Min's heart feel like it had just frozen. Luckily, the beginner's determined willpower skill was protecting his body. Sun Min appeared calm even though he was stressed to death inside. His combat magic even activated automatically with just a look from her. Persia giggled again when looking at Sun Min's tough look. That's interesting. How could you become like this in just 3 weeks? Persia happily patted Sun Min's head. Very good, I approve. If you grow up and still be like that, your sister will love you very much. Sun Min angrily pushed Persia's hand away. I don't need you to love me. Persia looked regretful and asked her brother, what's wrong? Sun Min saw that this was just another test for Persia, so he answered with a firm attitude. I want to become a great person, not a pet for you to pamper. Persia continued to laugh and tease Sun Min. Even with this expression, it was cute. Right after that, Persia calmly let out a threat that shocked Sun Min. If your head is placed on a stake, it will be a beautiful work of art. Sun Min got goosebumps and jumped back, but his tone was still very strong. Don't joke like that. Persia laughed happily. Ha ha ha. Honey, you think that's a joke? Persia stared at Sun Min with sinister eyes. More importantly, she wanted to see the toy she just brought home. Sun Min was confused and wondered why she wanted to meet Rudia, since she knew how to use fire magic. Sun Min couldn't help but feel scared in his heart. Persia was a peerless fire magician. Perhaps she had seen that Rudia was a fireball with the same power as her. If she captured Rudia then, or not, I can't let it happen like in the original. Sun Min unabashedly declared to Persia, that toy is mine. Sun Min raised his eyes to challenge Persia's authority. It was a toy I found. I have no obligation to show it to you, and have no intention of doing so anyway. Immediately an invisible stream of energy emitted from the Persia. Do you dare to challenge me? Sun Min's very determined willpower skills were quickly activated to fight against the extremely powerful energy source. Persia glared and threatened Sun Min's spirit. Look at you. How dare you dare to oppose me? You're just a brat with nothing but combat magic. Under the oppression of Persia, the easy energy cultivation method complemented the activation of the Holy Eye. Sun Min was thus able to see the flow of Persia's mana trying to crush him. At this moment, Persia narrowed her eyes in amusement because even the 5 young masters couldn't withstand that oppression. She suddenly announced, I will give you one more chance. Sun Min looked at Persia suspiciously. What chance? Persia smiled cunningly. You're learning combat magic, right? Sun Min nodded, yes, even though it's just at the basic level. Persia proudly raised one finger. She would only use one finger to cast combat magic. I will eliminate all elements and only use pure combat magic. Sun Min frowned in doubt. Have you learned combat magic? Persia shrugged and replied, just a little. I just read it about 5 minutes before coming here. A reluctant smile appeared on Sun Min's lips. Anyway, this is the optimal way if you want to keep Rudia. Right after taking a deep breath, Sung Min quickly entered a fighting stance. I will try to defeat you, third sister. Persha giggled and created a fiery snake from one finger. Our youngest brother is quite brave. I like that. The fiery snake rushed towards Sung Min with all its fastest speed. While the snake rushes forward, the holy eye discovered it was just an illusion, and Sung Min's mana fist swung towards it without hesitation. In the blink of an eye, the punch along with the power of the holy eye destroyed the illusion of the fiery snake. Persha didn't feel angry, but on the contrary, he was very excited. The boy had definitely improved compared to last time. She excitedly encouraged Sung Min, "Keep going. If you win, I will ignore your idea of taking that toy." Behind her sinister smile is a harsh, challenging voice. You have to try to do your best. The moment Persha looked down at Sung Min, the image of an evil god appeared. If she doesn't find it interesting, she will crush your toy. In fact, against Sung Min, Persha is feeling excited for the first time in a long time. Sung Min challenged Persha with arrogance and confidence. I will definitely defeat you at all costs, third sister. Persha thought to herself, I never thought I would hear such energetic words, not from the fifth or sixth person, but from the seventh person. Moreover, whoever that seventh person is, isn't he the disgrace of the Maiden family and a bastard abandoned by his father? Persha felt even more amused when Sung Min began to counterattack, charging forward with an energetic punch. Persha silently mocked Sung Min. So slow, she still only used one finger, didn't even leave her place. Then invisible energy radiated from Persha's finger like a whip towards Sung Min. Sung Min couldn't avoid Persha's counterattack in time, so he was knocked back. Luckily, he still had time to raise his hands to block the damage to his chest and abdomen. Sung Min jumped back a few steps and then landed in a kneeling position because of the vibrations on his body that Persha had just caused. Persha saw that and immediately smirked. This brat chose to resist even though he could have dodged that attack. Persha suddenly remembered that at that time, a blue aura protected Sung Min, so he learned defensive magic in combat. That's the right choice. In fact, Sung Min knew that the longer this match lasted, the more disadvantageous he would become, so he deliberately endured the blow. In exchange for something special, like the last time I was hit by an apple, a beginner combat magic skill, very determined will has evolved into a high-level iron will to protect the body. Sung Min tried to take advantage of that because the difference in strength was so large that dodging and counterattacking became more difficult for him. Suddenly, a stomachache shook Sung Min's body. She just used one yang thread and it caused her to have a mana shock. At that moment, the easy mana cultivation method began to control the mana cycle and stabilize the mana fluctuations. Sung Min endured the pain and moved at maximum speed to seize the unique opportunity, activating the beginner combat magic technique. Use high-level weights to make the footsteps faster and stronger. Sung Min aimed straight at his eye level, the target being her right thigh. Sung Min then grabbed and hugged Persha's right leg with both hands while she was subjective. Thanks to maintaining precise balance, Sung Min was able to hook his right leg onto Persha's left leg. Put your weight on it and knock her down. When Persha's body slid down following Sung Min's hook, she still didn't understand what was happening. Sung Min used his head to push Persha's stomach and completely knocked her down. Persha's whole body hit the ground with a shocking sound. Beginner combat magic skills, using high-level weights, were continuously applied. They both fell, but Sung Min still kept his balance. He quickly jumped up, raising his fist with blue mana pouring out menacingly. Without hesitation, Sung Min punched Persha straight in her beautiful face. Blood splashed immediately afterward, but Sung Min was not happy. On the contrary, he gritted his teeth and tried to hold back his scream. Sung Min's hand bones were all shattered, but he still endured the pain, telling Persha, "Looks like you used defensive magic." Persha reluctantly smiled. Yes. Persha smacked her lips regretfully. You already predicted that I would let my guard down, so you intentionally rushed at me right from the start, huh? Sung Min calmly replied, yes, that was my only choice. Persha pouted dejectedly. You want to take advantage of that to surprise me and throw me down in such a rude and disrespectful way. Sung Min smiled arrogantly. Wasn't magic fighting always like this? Persha continued to grumble. That's why I've always hated combat magic. It's so inelegant. Sung Min smiled bitterly. Maybe it wasn't very luxurious, but for better or worse, she was still defeated by me. Persha slightly pouted. looking unconvinced. However, as soon as she rolled her eyes and saw Sungmin's broken hand, her attitude completely changed. Yeah, that's right. Then Persha moved her finger with a small spot of light on the tip of her finger. At the same time, Sungmin's body suddenly floated in the air, but he couldn't do anything to fight it. The next second, Sungmin's body slammed against the wall. The sound of the wall and bones cracking at the same time echoed throughout the room. Blood spurted out from Sungmin's mouth, and Persha giggled. I won the bet. She leisurely walked towards her brother with a sinister smile. I won't be keeping an eye on your toys anymore, however. I'm becoming more and more interested in you. Persha thought to herself. Just like Sando said, this kid's body is really strong, even if it's just a finger. But with that move, I put in quite a large amount of destructive energy, yet it was blocked by that flesh body. Persha looked at Sungmin with the eyes of a predator. I'm curious about this kid's toughness. Let's see how much it can reach, although it's still quite weak right now. Just then, Persha said to Sungmin, see you later, little brother, and she disappeared in a burst of flames. Persha returned to her mansion and pondered. What was more remarkable was that it absorbed her mana. I can't believe it was absorbed on purpose. Persha couldn't help but wonder with a bit of interest. Magicians with the absorption type do indeed exist, but that kid was a bit different from that situation, so I tried to exaggerate it a bit. Persha didn't show it, but her eyes lit up with excitement because I also gave her mana recovery. If she used it well, it can achieve new progress. Sando suddenly spoke behind Persha's back. You must really appreciate that young master. Persha giggled. That kid is very interesting, isn't he? Sando curiously asked Persha. It seems like the lady just gave him another gift. Is that right? Persha smiled happily and replied, yes, but that thing could destroy its body if not handled properly. Meanwhile, Sungmin was still kneeling on the floor and coughing up large pools of blood. Special status notification system. Elementary combat magic techniques. Self-regeneration. Engraved on the activated body. Sungmin held his chest in pain and lamented. It was a special situation. Every time Persha came, it was like something strange happened. Very soon after, elementary combat magic techniques. Self-regeneration helped Sungmin recover his body. The broken bones healed quickly despite consuming a large amount of mana. Sungmin breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that all the suffering was over, but the system displayed a new notification. Elementary combat magic techniques. Self-regeneration and the mana cultivation method easily resonates. A special condition occurs due to the resonance between combat magic, mana cultivation, and a foreign element. The system continues to notify that the conditions for body restructuring have been reached, starting the restructuring process. Sungmin frowned and looked at the announcement with confused eyes. What? Restructuring? What was that? For a moment, Sungmin felt like the world was turning black. Everything around him was spinning, making him feel dizzy. For a moment, Sungmin couldn't think of anything. His mind went blank even when he closed his eyes. He still saw the message from the system. Restructuring his body would come with intensely painful side effects. Sungmin's whole body seemed to be crumbling at the same time, and his bones were turning into fine powder. His intuition told him, must maintain alertness. Sungmin gradually collapsed to the floor. Black liquid began to leak from his ears. Not only in his ears, but also in his eyes. Even in his nose and in his mouth, black slimy liquid flowed out as if he had been poisoned. Finally, Sungmin couldn't bear it anymore and screamed. Black liquid also started to leak out from his pores. His skin felt burned, and his joints were broken. Joints separated and then reassembled themselves at breakneck speed. Elementary combat magic techniques. High-level iron will poured into the restructuring body. The easy mana cultivation method was controlling the entire process. Hearing Sungmin's terrible scream, both Hyrat and Rudia ran in at the same time, looking worried. Seeing the room covered in a dark gas, Hyra assessed the situation immediately. It seemed to be poison. The smell was so strong, like river water, that Hyra quickly took a towel and pressed it to her nose. No, it wasn't poisonous. The poison couldn't be this strong, or did his body produce this mist? Black smoke filled the room, making Sungmin's body only vaguely visible, requiring a large amount of mana to restructure his body. But his mana was almost depleted, making him confused. Where did all that mana go? Warning system. Not enough mana, the restructuring process will be interrupted. If the mana shortage continues to interrupt the restructuring, it will cause huge side effects. Sung Min is miserable and struggling in pain. Damn it, I don't have any mana left. What should I do? Suddenly Sung Min felt something while in pain. A purifier dispelled the black smoke in the room. Rudia charged forward and released a large amount of purifier to dispel the mist that she thought was poisonous gas. Larson, I'm not sure what's going on, but I'll help you. Thanks to that, Sung Min was able to absorb pure mana. The thing Rudia was using was red flame. The fire carries enormous energy related to the setting of purification that he created in the novel. Sung Min secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Rudia probably just wanted to do everything she could, but that helped me a lot. He immediately smiled gently at the girl. Thank you, Rudia. After that, the entire room was engulfed in flames. More precisely, the only thing burning was the black waste leaking from Sung Min's body. A moment later, the body restructuring process was completed, and the system announced that the segment of the novel related to the unfinished plot had been opened. When Sung Min emerged from the flames, both girls' eyes widened in surprise. A new notification pops up. The innate attribute hidden deep in your body, natural personality, has been activated. You have achieved the basic conditions of high-level combat magic. Sung Min walked out of the fire with a completely new body state, taller and with stronger muscles. Sung Min looked at his transformed body in surprise. His natural personality is the most advanced physical attribute I set up just for the main character. Heavenly personality combined with the Sword Saint will create an ultimate attribute. Heavenly God, this is the hidden innate physical attribute of the main character. Sung Min couldn't help but wonder, even the Holy Eye, thinking over and over again, wondering how he could have the main character's attributes. However, Sung Min knew that he wouldn't be able to understand anything if he thought about it any longer. So he dismissed that thought. Never mind. First of all, I must not reveal this to anyone. A few days later, a letter arrived from Heron Village, making Rudia extremely happy. Really, my father is really getting better. Hira smiled and gave her an envelope. Yes, this is a letter from him. In the letter, Father Rudia wrote that the villagers were much better, and thanks to the secret medicine of the seventh young master, the epidemic disappeared completely. Rudia was so happy that she cried. Hee, that's so good. Looking at Rudia's bright smile, Sung Min also suddenly smiled. I like this feeling. Rudia turned to Sung Min and said, I will definitely repay this favor. Sung Min looked at the girl bewilderedly. How grateful. Rudia grinned. Of course, now you are my benefactor. Sung Min nodded and replied, well, that's quite true. Right after that, Rudia eagerly proposed to Sung Min that I would become his fake contract, a fake contract of fire. Sung Min quickly remembered that the fire contract was the contract that Keisen and Rudia signed at the Great Normandy Canyon. The Fire Pact is a contract that firebenders can only sign once in their lifetime. Those who sign the Fire Pact must remain loyal to the contract until their last breath. For firebenders, this is considered a lifetime contract. Sung Min knows it's beneficial but is still very hesitant. If I sign a pact with Rudia right here, right now, the original plot will change radically. Keisen's powerful ally, the Blood Assassin, will completely disappear from this world. However, very quickly after that, Sung Min understood his thoughts. Wait, what does that have to do with me? I'm the one in danger. From now until I turn 17, I have to escape death and the risk of confronting Keisen Sade. Sung Min arrogantly cleared his throat and told Rudia, go ahead if you really want to. The little girl smiled brightly when she received Sung Min's approval. Right after that, Rudia began to recite the oath. I, Firebender Rudia, hereby swear a lifelong oath before the eternal fire. Even though Sung Min is the author of the story, he still had to admire this scene that he had never described in detail. Wow, this is the fire wish. Suddenly a notification appeared. The Holy Eye was encoding new information, displaying the settings of another world. The system displays additional information for Sung Min. The person who signed the fire contract will gain authority with the rage of the berserker. Sung Min immediately remembered that in the novel, he suddenly made Rudia crazy. And she was actually a very simple person, so once she got angry, her becoming crazy was a direction. Reasonable. However, he had not established that the person who possessed the authority over the berserker's rage had the authority to control the mana source of the fake contract when going berserk. The side effect is the death of the false coven. Reading the side effects of the fire contract made some men immediately scream, "Wait, wait, Rudia, I don't want to sign." Rudia looked at him bewilderedly. "What? Why don't you want to sign a contract? This contract is very useful." Some men frantically shook his head. "No, it's not good at all." Rudia firmly nodded. "Dad said it was very good." Some men immediately asked the girl sensitively how good it was. "Try explaining." Some men's unexpected question confused Rudia. That. Rudia had a simple mind, so she couldn't remember too many complicated details. She hesitated and pondered for a long time. What was it? Some men immediately grabbed Rudia's shoulder and said in a loud voice, "Listen carefully. If you become a contractor of the fire contract, you will have to sacrifice your whole life for me." Rudia innocently replied, "Sacrifice? That's good. Sacrifice is a good thing." Some men looked at the girl skeptically. Why was she so good? Rudia's eyes sparkled with excitement. She was so cool. Some men awkwardly explained, "If you go crazy, I won't be able to stop you." Rudia still doesn't understand. "It's okay." Some men hesitantly added, "If I can't stop you, then." He couldn't say. He knew the side effect would be death from the fake contract, so he told Rudia she would die. But Rudia still insisted with full enthusiasm, "We are ready to die for the false agreement. That is the honor of a firebender." Rudia even said it in an excited voice, "We call it martyrdom." Some men couldn't help but be stunned. She said it innocently. That's what makes it even scarier. He looked awkward and continued to persuade Rudia, "I don't want you to die, and I don't want to be responsible for your death either." Rudia laughed and patted some men's shoulder comfortingly. "Come on, it's impossible, Larson. You're worrying too much. I won't die." Some men was confused and thought to himself, "It seems like the more I talk, the more offended I become." Some men took a deep breath and held Rudia's hand tightly. "Listen carefully." He looked into her eyes with steadfast and sincere eyes. She was only 9 years old. She was too young to be a fake contractor. Rudia innocently replied, "Age is not an issue." Some men objected. "I am not a firebender. Don't impose firebender beliefs on people." Rudia finally wavered a bit. Imposing is a bad thing." Some men quickly took the opportunity. "See, I don't want to be imposed upon." Rudia looked at him sadly. "Larson wouldn't like someone like me to become Larson's fake contractor." Some men clasped his hands and begged her, "It's not that I don't like it, but that responsibility is too big. We are too young. Who knows if we can make something as sacred as a fire pact?" Rudia sadly nodded. "I understand. Then I'll wait." The system immediately announced that the fire agreement had been cancelled. Rudia thought for a moment and then told him, "Larson is a good person." Some men looked at her bewilderedly. "What's so sudden?" Rudia smiled. "That's what my father said." The girl explained that the signing of the fire contract must be held solemnly, and the fake contract must also be carefully chosen. Rudia grinned innocently. "Father said if I signed the contract, I would become a perfect tool. He also said that if someone refuses the contract with a legitimate reason, that person is definitely a good person." Rudia continued to smile brightly. He said that such a person was an extremely trustworthy person. But then, the girl suddenly became so excited that some men shivered in fear. "He also told me never to let that person slip out of my hand." The girl's fiery, possessive spirit made some men startle and step back. After that, some men gave Rudia a few bars of chocolate, making her eyes light up. It was so delicious, really delicious.